Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm really excited to be here today with Shannon Tipton. My name is Jake Villa. I am a customer success manager with Go1. Today, we're going to dive into talking about onboarding, the why, the what, and the hows of onboarding. Shannon, I'm really excited to be with you today. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you come from?
Well, thank you for that, Jake. I am super excited to be here too. Onboarding is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. But first, my name is Shannon Tipton, and I am one of three people who are part of the Emerging Stronger group. You know, we do some work for you guys, and that's myself, Laura Overton, and Michelle Ockers. I myself own a company called Learning Rebels, where we work with companies to help them think differently about training. Hence, Rebels, right? We want people to think differently about what they're doing. And I think onboarding is a great place to start, right? Because it all starts with onboarding and thinking differently about onboarding.
Yeah, 100%. When thinking about that, why is onboarding so important? Like, why is it something that we should spend so much time focusing on?
You know, I think a lot of organizations, they do your typical onboarding. You know, they bring people in and then they kill them with a 100 deck PowerPoint, right? All about the history of the organization and who we are and blah, blah, blah. And they call that onboarding. And that's not onboarding. That is, regurgitation of your company history, to which I don't want to offend anybody, but there aren't a whole lot of people who are interested in the history of your organization on day one, you know.
Right.
So when we think about onboarding is really helping people be the best that they can be as soon as they can be it, right? So we want people to be smarter, better, faster, and we want to be able to do that in such a way that they can work within the culture of your organization and be engaged in your organization as soon as possible. And when we do that, studies tell us over and over again that when you provide your employees with that warm welcome, what will happen is that they stick with you longer, right? Almost 63% of people who are given an appropriate warm welcome will hang with you longer than 6 months. And if they hang with you longer than 6 months, then they're going to be with you for at least 2 years. And that is the sort of purpose that your onboarding program should focus on. You know, who has the time and energy to keep churning through employees, right?
Yeah, 100%. I've heard you mention warm welcome a few times, and we're not just talking about Yeti cups or a cool Patagonia sweater vest, right? We're talking about the excitement about the future of the company, not so much the history of the company, but how you fit into this expanding universe that is coming towards us. So when you're kind of thinking about that warm welcome, that's sort of the next phase is kind of that honeymoon phase, right? And so when we're thinking about that, like, what are some really great ways to help us get, and I think we should go back and dive more into that warm welcome part, but then after the warm welcome comes the honeymoon phase, right? So is there a transition period there, or do we just kind of roll right into the honeymoon and everybody's happy, and what pitfalls are we going to avoid during that time?
Yeah, let's talk about that warm welcome. So that warm welcome is really setting your employees up for success and understanding, like you said, where they fit within that big picture. And it is not about that Yeti cup, although I appreciate a good Yeti cup.
I love
everybody loves swag. So let's do that. I'll give you an example here. Is an organization that I worked for a number of years ago. When we repurposed the onboarding program for this company, we did arrange for a warm welcome. And part of that warm welcome was receiving that swag in the mail before their first day. So automatically we're building relationships and we're building trust. We know that you're going to show up. So here is some really slick produced materials about who the company is, what they're about, who their customer is, as well as it came with a gender agnostic type of tote bag. It came with a cup. It came with some pins. It came with information, product information. It came with everything that a person needed to know when they unpacked. So when they
Yeah.
unpack, they were automatically part of the organization. And
I
that
love
gives,
this idea. Like
yeah,
on LinkedIn right now, it's every news story on LinkedIn is about the hiring crisis and people not showing up for their first day. But by you taking that step of making an investment in them before that first day, how could you not want to show up? Right? Like
exactly,
that's, yeah, that's amazing.
exactly. And that's how you beat out your competition, so to speak, is that we realize, here's the first part of that, is the warm welcome informs the employee that we realize there are other choices that you have. Everybody has choices. Even the person who is, just starting out at McDonald's or Burger King or what have you, they have choices. So we want to acknowledge that you've made a choice to come and work for us. And thank you for choosing us, right? Too often it's the other way around. It's like, you should be lucky that you've got a job with us. It's like, no, make them feel as though they're part of the family as soon as you possibly can. So that's part of the warm welcome. And then the other part of the warm welcome was a green room. So there was a designated web space for people to go to before they got all of their official passwords, that they could go and they could meet other new people, share ideas, share thoughts, and it was moderated by somebody within the organization. And that was a rotating role between all aspects of the business. So not just L&D. 1 month it would be somebody from marketing, 1 month would be somebody from operations, somebody who was designated in that room to take care of the new people who are coming in. And everyone, regardless of role, regardless of where they were in the organization, entered that green room as a first step.
That's amazing.
So again,
and it's not hard to implement, right? You could start a message board forum, or Microsoft Teams is really popular right now with everybody, and you could just start a team that is named after that cohort or that month. That's fantastic. I love that idea.
Yep. And at that time, we didn't have, Slack or Teams. That was a little bit before our time. But what we did is we just built a Google site.
Yeah.
Super easy to do, right?
So I really like this idea. This is all like pre-first day. We've created a warm welcome. They're part of the team before they ever show up. Right. And they've even gotten a lot of that history information, maybe in some of those welcome packets that they receive. So then first day they walk in, they get shown to their desk, they get shown to a room with a projector and a slide deck, right? That's the next step, is the slide deck.
Right, that's where that 100 slide deck comes in.
Yeah.
Please stop. Please stop. You're boring your people to death. And here's the thing that I like to tell my clients is that the employee's first day is not unlike a first date.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where all of the good things are supposed to happen. And if you think about your very first date with your significant other right now, that's as good as it gets. It's all kind of downhill from there. We're all in our fresh clothes and in our makeup, and we're trying to make a good impression. And then the next day, maybe I'm not wearing my very best clothes, maybe my second best clothes. And eventually you get to that part where everybody's wearing sweatpants, right?
Right.
Yeah. Right. So that's the decline that happens with onboarding, but that's okay. That's evolution. That's what happens. Right. So now that very first day, which is that so critical first impression, and this is what you do. You'll lock them in a room with somebody from risk management or HR or what have you, and you bore them to death for 8 hours, right? Yeah. And then they're automatically regretting their decision coming to work for you.
Yeah.
So can we do better? Yes, we can. And we can do better in a variety of ways. What if we broke that up? So rather than going in and automatically ushering them into that room, here's another thing that we've done, in what I've done in the past, is that part of that warm welcome space has all of their new hire paperwork.
Yep.
So here's a little video on what the different sorts of benefits are. Here's the difference between HMO, PPO, et cetera, little short 3-minute type of video for people to watch. And then they can start diving into their own paperwork at their own leisure. So you've got a week maybe to fill out your paperwork by watching all of the different steps. So that way you're not killing them with all that paperwork from the very beginning.
Yeah, I had an onboarding experience that was like that, where everything was online. It was just on a website, and I just clicked through and agreed to the terms and conditions. And on the first day, I just had to bring my driver's license or my passport with,
Exactly.
just for that checkbox, but everything else was already done.
Right.
And I like that, because you're exactly right. On that first day, it's so typical that you spend everything before lunch filling out paperwork, and then everything after lunch is that slide deck, and
Right.
then you
Oh
just
my
never
God.
want to come back. Yeah, you're
Exactly.
like, yeah,
It really makes you question your employment decision,
yep.
because
So
I just really want to know about my job.
right, and that's the thing. So it's kind of the different buckets I've heard you talk about before: need to know, should know, nice to know. So when we're thinking about day 1 to day 3, like, what should we really be focusing on when we're bringing on new customers? Like, is it that need to know, or those nice to knows, or some blend of those two things to keep us excited? Because I've also had those first couple of days where I learned nothing about my job, and I would go home and my wife would say, how do you like your job? And I go, I have no idea what my job
I
is.
have no idea what my
So,
job is. They haven't talked to me about that yet. I
right.
guess it's above my pay grade right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So yes, typically when I think about information for the onboarding process, when you get to that point about developing the appropriate training or the appropriate knowledge share, it is need to know, should know, nice to know. Those are the 3 buckets. So when you go through, and maybe after listening to this, you're thinking, well, maybe I should reconstruct our onboarding process. Think about all of the information that you're dumping on people, and then put them into 3 different categories. What is it that they need to know before they can start working? They cannot do their job unless they know this, this, and this. It's impossible. Okay. So that's the stuff you want to focus on. And a lot of times that is safety, it's risk mitigation. But people also want to know, when and how do I get paid? Where should I eat lunch? Where do I sit? Who's my cube buddy? Or who am I working with on the floor? So all of those things are need to know items to help a person do their job smarter, better, faster. The should know stuff is the complementary areas. So if you think about, what should I know about my job that's going to make it successful or easier for me to do my job? And in some cases, if we go back to, this is how I get paid, this is when I get paid, it could also be little things like, where should I park?
Yeah.
Right. So that's helpful, right? Where should I park? What's the easiest way to get to my job? But also now think about, what are the components of that person's job? So if that person's job is a salesperson, what should they know? Well, they should begin to know what products you have. And that's what goes in that goodie bag of tricks, right? Before they come to work. And so now you could do something fun. You can build challenge games for the new hires. Let's say they're all new salespeople. So you're building a challenge game around that, and there's a leaderboard with it. And maybe during the first week, you've made a trivia game out of your product knowledge. And so at the end of the week, you've got this leaderboard of success, right? And then you can automatically tell who needs help, who doesn't. But they're having fun while they're learning all the things that they should know about their job. Yeah. Then you've got the nice to know. So this is the stuff that when we have a chance, we'll get to it. That's the, here's where our CEO went to school, or here is the history of our organization, the deep dive history of our organization. So these are things that are complementary to what people need to know and should know. But it doesn't have to be delivered right there at that moment. It could be 2 weeks in, 30 days in, even 60 days in, right? So you break down the content into those 3 very specific buckets. And if you address them in that priority manner, you're going to find that people are going to be more engaged and wanting to do the best job that they can, right?
Yeah. So I've experienced onboarding overload more times than I can count, where I show up at 9 and I don't leave till 5, and I get that 45-minute lunch break, and then you're right back in your seat. but we don't actually work like that. Our brains don't work like that. So when we're talking about all of this time, what do you see as a good kind of schedule or kind of calendar for like that first week of intros where you're trying to get people excited and keep them engaged and without that overload?
Yeah, that's a great question. We try to cram so much information in, it's like they're here and we might as well make use of all of their time, right?
Yeah.
And so then we just fill that 5-pound potato sack with 10 pounds of knowledge, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So my advice to you is for people to stretch that out. It seems counterintuitive, but you need people to have a chance to decompress and debrief what they're learning. And so maybe the first part of the day is spent, let's say again, if I go back to my salesperson example, maybe the first part of the day on day one is, let's refresh your memory on some of the product knowledge items. Let's be sure you've got your paperwork done because we want you to get paid for today. We want to give you a little bit of the information around our sales catalog, and you let them touch and feel the different product if it is indeed a tactile type of product. Let them experience them, let them hang around with it. Then let them go to lunch. Let them go to lunch with each other if it's a group onboarding, or let them go to lunch with somebody who is who they might work with. And this doesn't have to be a mentor, coach, or trainer. It could be Joe in sales. You're going to just have lunch with Joe in sales, pick his brain a little bit, and then come on back. Then Joe in sales can go off and he can finish his day, and you can come back to wherever it is you're doing. Debrief the morning and then let them go. Let them have a chance to have their brains process. And then you can get deeper and deeper as the week goes on, right? And then maybe as far as the paperwork is concerned, on the first day, be sure that they're signed off on the stuff that they have to be signed off on, like their payroll, right? Their payroll paperwork. But maybe the second day, focus on their benefits. And maybe on the third day, focus on something else, right? So this way, you're just not all cramming it into one day.
Yeah. And that's that kind of like extended onboarding versus compression, right? Like that's the difference between checking a box and really investing in someone, right? Like so much of our compressed onboarding is just, I got to check this box. They need to know these immediate things. And then we push them out onto the floor. Where what you're talking about is really making an investment in someone long-term, and that kind of slow drip, right?
Right.
So when you're thinking about this, like, where do you see the plug-in of kind of like what Go1 brings to the table and kind of our e-learning content and our library like this? Because so much of onboarding is in a room with 20 or 30 other people. But then we've got providers like Filtered AI who, does an assessment before you start learning Excel courses and things like that. So people need those kinds of skills too. Where do you see that fitting into like an onboarding week?
Oh, I think that just fits in so seamlessly. What could happen is that every day they get one piece of a playlist. Watch this, listen to this. And each one connects to the other. So let's say this is for retail purposes. And let's say you've got somebody who's on the floor. And during their orientation week, while they're shadowing other retail people, you give them one thing, just one thing, to watch and to listen to. And then the next day you build on that. So here's that one thing leveled up, and so on and so forth throughout the course of their very first week together. And you give them that priority content that helps them perhaps be better customer service minded, or better sales minded, or better culture minded, or better people, right? How to be a better person, because that's what we stand for as an organization. So that playlist can be broken up over the course of a week or maybe multiple weeks. Just give them one thing a day.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the idea of supplementing it too. I taught first aid, CPR, lifeguard training for the American Red Cross for 20 years. And as a trainer, my favorite parts of the day were when I got to put on a video for 10 minutes or like have somebody self-learn for a couple minutes and then come back to the group. Because even if we're thinking about it selfishly from an onboarding training perspective, it's exhausting for us mentally as well. And being able to supplement with these kind of off-the-shelf pieces of content that really help propel things forward. I would have loved to have that option when I was a trainer full-time as well.
Yeah, and that's where putting together a learning journey for your onboarding really is critical.
Yeah.
So here's the other thing that was part of that welcome package. Part of that welcome package was a copy of their journey. It was nice and colorful and professionally made. They got a copy of it. And they got a copy of the management journey. So they could see what was expected of them, but also what was expected of the management team or their coach, as it were, during the onboarding process. So everybody knew what everyone was supposed to be doing and what they were supposed to be learning during that orientation period of time. And I think that that's really helpful because it gives the new person an idea that you may not always be with me for certain periods of time, but during that time, here's what I can be doing. So I'm not sitting in a room all lonely in front of a computer watching a silly video while I'm going, where did everybody go?
Yeah, expectation setting, right? And
right.
Yeah, I've experienced that a lot from the other side where the onboarding is a complete mystery. And it's, okay, we're going to break for lunch. We'll come back and we'll do some other stuff in the afternoon. I would love to know what that other stuff is.
Yeah, can you help me?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you know what happens? You know why that happens is because there's no plan.
Right.
And a lot of times, unfortunately, is that the person who is supposed to be onboarding you did not even know that you were supposed to be showing up that day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's no communication across the organization, so there's no level setting, no sense checking. And this is, we can point the fingers in a whole bunch of different directions as to who's at fault for that. But generally, it's a lack of communication because the organization did not place onboarding as a priority issue.
Yeah. So I really like this idea. We've talked a lot about prepping before even day one. And then we've talked a lot about, day 1 through 3 and those first kind of week or 2 weeks of onboarding and what those days look like. And now we just let them go, right? We never talk to them again. And we just say, hey, fun. It was great to meet you. See you later. And then that trainer that onboarded you, you never see them except maybe, once upon a time in a hallway 3 months from now, you might walk past them. But that's not how onboarding should be, right? No. Onboarding, it goes way beyond that. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, right. So you got 3 stages to your onboarding process. You have the warm welcome. You have what I refer to as the honeymoon period, right, where everybody loves each other.
Yeah.
And then you have the continuation, right? Yeah. You have the maintaining the relationship part. So if I go back to that analogy of a first date, so we moved from that excitement to now let's maintain our relationship.
Right. And we don't just jump right from the first date to leaving the bathroom door open, right?
Right. Right. There it is. There is a gap in time in between there where we've got to build to that.
Yeah.
I love that. Yes, that's perfect. And we too often pay no attention to that gap in time. So what does that mean? So what that means is that there are continuous learning opportunities that we put people through where we can give them deeper, broader. So if you think about that T shape, right? Mm-hmm. So we've got knowledge that is wide and knowledge that is deep. Yep. And so when you're building that relationship, what happens is during the onboarding, we're trying to build wide, right? So we're trying to give them an introduction to all of the things in the business. So we're trying to expand their knowledge. Now what needs to happen is we need to build deep for their particular job role.
Yep.
And so that is where this additional training comes from after the first week or first 2 weeks, depending on how long your onboarding process is. But you just don't stop it. It's a continuation. So now we can drip feed learning to them, right, through email lessons or what have you. We can do it through chatbot. We could do it through a series of one-on-one meetings, et cetera. But what we need to do is we should focus on that building of knowledge, that building of relationships, all the way through to 30, 60, even 90 days. So people really feel embedded in the organization.
Yeah. And I think too often organizations, as soon as onboarding is over, that first week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, they just pass them off to their department managers,
right,
who have no experience with training, right?
And no
they're
time.
Not on, and no time, exactly. And so then you're just kind of left on this island where you're expected to perform something without any kind of backup or support or ongoing training. So that idea is really critical. You and I, in other conversations, have talked about the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve, and how when we're being inundated so much with so much information right at the start, that's really where you've talked about that 30, 60, 90, the ongoing reminders of all those things that when you're talking about that broad spectrum of learning at the beginning, what are some best practices on revisiting those things that we learned in our first 4 or 5 days of onboarding, a month or 2 months down the road, and how important is that?
It's critical. Training fails to stick because of 2 reasons: a lack of feedback mechanism and a lack of learning reinforcement. Okay, those are the 2 reasons why your training doesn't stick. That's for onboarding or any other training. It's especially true for onboarding.
Yeah.
So what this means then is that a person who's new to your organization, regardless of age or gender or generation, they need some sort of feedback that's going to tell them if they're doing the job right. Am I headed in the right direction? So there has to be some sort of feedback loop built into your orientation process or your onboarding process, whatever that may look like. That could be a lunch. I worked for a company where I occasionally, like once a week, once every few days, would have lunch with a different person. And that was scheduled. And I appreciated that. And then I could ask them questions and they could give me feedback on, where my job was going or how I could do it better, or how the person before me failed in it, and how I could make strides in doing it better than the person before me. So that sort of feedback really becomes critical. But then you layer that with learning reinforcement. And I just touched on that just a few minutes ago when you talked about drip feed learning. So what would happen if for a month after I started, every couple of days, I got an email with a new lesson, with a new Go One playlist item, right? Yeah. Here, watch this. Give me, email your thoughts about this to X person, to your manager, or to your L&D person, or to HR, or whoever owned that particular content. And this is where it becomes a family effort. So let's say I'm in manufacturing, right? I'm a supervisor in manufacturing. And once a week, I get this Play One list about leadership development. And then they say, okay, you've watched this. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to debrief that with your manager. Okay, awesome. So you go ahead, you do that. You're getting additional learning. You're also getting additional feedback.
Yeah.
3 days later, you get another email that says, here's something about safety. So after the importance of safety or the importance of risk management, I want you to watch this. I want you to build some comments, and I want you to send that to the person in charge of safety. So now you're spreading the love, so to speak. So information is going to the manager or to the safety person or to the HR person, and you're having all of these conversations, these deep conversations across departments.
Yep.
Right? And how strong does that make a new hire?
Well, you're immediately putting them into this community, right?
Right.
Of support from every direction. So the question that I have as a follow-up to that is how are you assessing success with that model? Because it seems like it could be, without proper proactive preparations, a very subjective experience based on who they might be talking to. So how are we kind of measuring their growth?
Well, when we talk about measuring growth, a lot of times we plug that into tests or quizzes. And I think that is not what we need here. What we need here is, in some ways, yeah, there's certain subjectivity that goes along with it, but it could be measured through, how do we see that person blending in? Is their ramp up time to working in within the culture, to doing their jobs? Is that happening on pace? So success is that they're able to do their job without supervisory oversight, that they are fitting in within the culture, all within 30 days. That's success, in whatever form that takes. It could be that you're asking them to do something along the side. So let's say we're asking you to keep a 30-day learning journal along the side, and then the manager has access to that learning journal, so they can see all of the things that you've taken, all of your thoughts around those things that you've taken. And then from that, they can see, well, you know what, that person is really fitting in the way that we need them to do, and they're really understanding their job. That could be measured as success. Then there are just, your regular matrix. Did they watch the video? They'll know that because it comes out of their LMS, or it comes from you. Did they watch it? Did they participate in it? Did they watch the whole thing? So you have some basic matrix like that. And so when you use a combo pack, then you know that you're on your way to somebody really being able to be a contributing factor within your organization.
Yeah, I really like the idea that you were just talking about of marrying this community building idea with like a 30, 60, 90 day, like I've experienced that before, where after 30 days, you should be able to do this. After 60 days, you should be able to do this. After 90 days, you should be able to do this. What I've never seen, though, is that community aspect plugged into that. So after 30 days, you should know 15 people's names, or you should know how to communicate with the different departments, how to submit, how to submit support tickets, or how to support other people. And everything that you've been talking about is really about getting feedback from people outside of our immediate sphere, which builds to that whole community experience of what ultimately keeps people at an organization years down the road.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love it. So we've talked a lot about kind of exterior validation of onboarding experience. What are some good best practices around a learner's or a new employee's self-validation or self-empowerment? Like how do we kind of measure that, or how do we support that? And maybe those are the same things, but.
Well, I think it's important to really identify what are their goals. And I don't believe we ask that often enough, to people who come into the organization. We get some perfunctory goals. Where do you hope to be in 30 days? Where do you hope to be in 60 days? Or what's your 5-year plan? Yeah, that's all well and good, but let's get to know people. Yeah. So it could be the same sort of exercises that's happening with the person who's being onboarded could be flipped over to their supervisor or manager. So some questions that could be asked of you is, Shannon started with you 2 weeks ago. What do you know about her? Yeah. What do you know about her goals? What does she have any dogs? What do you know about her, and what do you know about what she hopes to attain through working with this particular organization? Is she looking to level up her marketing skills? What is it that she wants to do? And then working together to put together not a performance development plan. We get all these fancy schmancy plans in place, but really all it is let me make sure that you're getting the opportunities for challenges that you need. That's really all it is. And if you leave it to a manager who's really invested in their people, then they'll make sure that those opportunities are open. And so it's a two-way street.
I couldn't agree more. In a different life, I was a director and I had a lot of employees. And one of the things that I would do when I was goal setting with my employees was I would set three different goals. One was a professional goal, very typical and normal of what everybody does. The second one was a personal goal on how they could contribute to the organization. So that wasn't a goal set by me. It was a goal chosen by my employee to say, hey, how are you going to personally, contribute? And then the third goal was always something that had nothing to do with work, but that I could somehow, or the company could somehow support them in achieving that personal goal. And I think that's exactly what you're talking about, right? Is letting them tell us what they want to achieve, and then weaving that into the fabric of our community and our organization. And I think that when we're looking at a library like the Go One library with over 80,000 learning objects, that's really where we can start to kind of help guide them down some learning paths that might be more personalized than a company-wide onboarding plan.
Right. I get really frustrated when clients or employers will say, well, I don't want to give them that learning because it doesn't have anything to do with their job.
Yeah.
Okay, so is that really what you're looking for?
Yeah.
Are you looking for that mouse to be running through the maze? Is that all you're looking for? Then, okay then. But mostly what we want from employees is that we want for them, if they do better, you do better. If you do better, the business does better, right? So it's a symbiotic relationship. And what I do say though is that finding content to support that is not our issue.
Yeah.
There is content out there by the jillions. What we have is a filtering issue. We have a curation issue. So your employees come in and they don't know how to sort through all of the different aspects of content that is sitting out there, especially in your wonderful catalog, right? Loads of stuff. So now if we can put these playlists together for them to say, start here, start here, start here. If you want to build sales knowledge, start here. If you want to build leadership, start here. If you want to build customer service, start here. So we can put these personalized paths together for them. So that way they're more successful. And that takes the management understanding what the new hire hopes to achieve someday.
Yeah, exactly. My director does a really great job of having those conversations with us. And then because we spend all day recommending content to customers, she recommends content and learning plans to us, exactly like you're saying. But she wouldn't be able to do that if she didn't know what our next steps were, right? Where we wanted to be. I love that. So thinking about, it sounds like a lot of what we talked about is about rethinking our onboarding experience, not just continuing with something because it's the way we've always done it, but being really proactive about putting ourselves in the shoes of the person coming into our team, thinking about how we can integrate them into the community, how we can skill them quickly to do the job, but then continue to support them after. Is there anything that we're missing here?
I think really it's just understanding that onboarding is not a definitive time frame. It starts on day 1, it ends on day 30. That's that. If we're thinking about onboarding in that way, I think we are missing an opportunity here. Yeah. So I would just reinforce the idea that there is a beginning date, there's that honeymoon period, and then there's that nurturing to relationship period. And that doesn't always have a stop date, a definitive stop date, because it could be a turning over of this person. So this person has a coach or a mentor perhaps for the first 30 days. Then they have a different coach or mentor during the second 30 days. And then maybe they even have yet a different person during the third 30 days. So over the course of 60 days, they're having these very rich relationship experiences within your organization, which leads to, more positive feelings about where they are at in the job that they are doing. So that would be my one, if I were to leave it at something, and you think about thinking differently, that's where we started, thinking differently about onboarding. That's what I would have people do, is to think beyond time frames. Think about it as you are building an individual relationship with this employee.
I love that. Thank you so much for your time this morning, Shannon. I know that everybody can reach out to you on LinkedIn. Check out Shannon Tipton, check out Learning Rebel, and thank you. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
it's my pleasure. Yes, thank you for having me. Absolutely, learningrebels.com. That's where you can find my website. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, I'm on all the things. So please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions.
Thank you. And you can also find playlists built by Shannon on the Go One library.
Yes.
Reach out to us as well if you want more information. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.